Alright guys, Jameson and Alex here. Today we're going to be talking about a subclass from Valda's Spire of Secrets, a Kickstarter that has been heavily popularized via the interwebs. And the first one we're going to be talking about is the Path of the Heavy Metal Barbarian. So, rocking on a little bit.
And yeah, thematic barbarian shirt. This is our word art barbarian shirt from our Urge store. Got all the nice, lovely things you think about a barbarian, like, attack, and reckless, and rage.
There you go. But if you're new to the channel, to the subclass series, what we're going to do is go through all the abilities gained in the subclass. I'm going to rate it based on its roleplay value, combat value, overall class synergy, and how the abilities gained in the subclass improve on the base class abilities.
That's right.
Also have our giveaway for D&D Beyond Players Bundle. Like, comment, and subscribe to be entered in that. Also, the video is sponsored by Hit Point Press and their BigBads.com magazine. So make sure you check that out. They have a cool monster that they give you every month. So make sure you check back regularly, subscribe. You're going to get an awesome big bad villain with background, lore, stat blocks.
A lot of really interesting abilities attached to him, too, to make him stand out.
Layer actions. Definitely make sure you check that out.
Yes.
Let's jump straight into it.
All right, so starting off level 3. You get your heavy metal axe.
Of course.
Yes, and if you don't do this pose 40,000 times when you're playing the subclass, you're not doing it right. And you can't headbang with a forwards hat, so you know.
There you go.
All right. Bonus proficiencies. You get proficiency with 3 musical instruments.
There you go.
Good choice. 3. Because it makes sense. You're heavy metal barbarian. Heavy metal axe, also starting at level 3. You can spend 8 hours of work converting a 2-handed weapon into an instrument with which you are proficient. Only you can play an instrument weapon you have created, which retains all its combat capabilities. You maintain a total number of instruments equal to your proficiency bonus. So you literally can have an axe that is both an axe and an axe.
If you're wondering what the heck is going on right now,
what are we actually doing?
This is where it gets interesting.
Here we go.
Also at 3rd level, because why not? Solo shredding. You play your instrument weapon even in combat, rocking out as you crack skulls. When you enter a rage, you begin ferociously playing a solo on your instrument weapon. After you deal damage to a hostile creature during your rage with your instrument weapon, you increase your raged bonus damage by 1. You can increase your rage bonus damage up to a maximum of twice your proficiency bonus. This increase lasts until you are incapacitated, no longer holding your instrument weapon. You miss an attack, or your rage ends. So basically, you're just getting a stacking bonus as you're hitting, your solo. Think Guitar Hero, keep the combo going.
Yeah. Don't mess up your note streak.
Keep the combo going, and you get increased damage every time you hit, which gives me some interesting implications later on, which we will go into.
Yes.
Then at level 6, we get Killer Vocals. As a bonus action, you can release a thunderous battle cry, blood-curdling screech, or growl. Each large or smaller creature you choose within 5 feet of you is pushed 5 feet away from you and is deafened until the end of your next turn. So just basically a free disengage and deafen condition.
Absolutely. Next up, at level 10, you have up to 11. Because, of course.
At level 10.
Yeah, 10, you get 11. Yeah. Whenever you take a charisma check, or any check that involves playing your instrument weapon specifically, you can treat a D20 roll of a 10 or lower as an 11. So it's reliable talent, as you would see that similar type of ability with other classes, subclasses, usually goes up to 10, but this is up to 11.
There you go.
And finally, at 14, we have Smash Hit. You've learned the best way to end a fight and a performance. And we all know that from music history, is to smash one of your instrument weapons entirely.
There you go.
When you hit a creature with an instrument weapon while you are raging, you can smash the weapon on the target, dealing an extra 4d12 damage. A non-magical instrument is completely destroyed, whereas a magical instrument weapon loses its musical components but becomes a normal weapon. So basically, if you're making an axe, then it breaks the strings off of it, but you can still beat people with it. But
exactly.
You just can't play normal music on it.
Yes, so you have to keep in mind with the 8-hour crafting time, either you're going to have multiple weapons, or you're going to want to have multiple weapons, because short rests, you get it back. So there's that to keep in mind. But all of that being said, those are the abilities gained in the subclass, so now we'll move on to the rating portion of the video. First up is the roleplay value asterisk, as always. When talking about roleplay, we're talking about interacting with the world around you, interacting with NPCs, non-combat scenarios, avoiding combat, basically things outside of the initiative order. Not talking about your class fantasy, history, lore, background. That's on you as a player. We can't rate you, but we can rate the abilities gained and how they might improve your potential in those role play scenarios. So, all of that being said, you do get some extra proficiencies with your instruments, which that can be pretty niche, but it could definitely come into play depending on DM discretion, of course, and how you use that. If you're creative, it can come into more play with social interactions and things like that. You also have your instrument weapons, which could maybe let you sneak in some weapons into some questionable places because normally it's an instrument.
Normally it would be an instrument. You like prove it.
Could be like a club that you turn into. You know what I mean? Like you could make some arguments there to kind of
you got a big like hammer. It's got like drums, like drum canvas. You're like,
like a banjo.
Yeah.
So, there's some ways you could maybe use that to let you sneak in some weapons into some places you otherwise wouldn't be able to get to. So, there's some niche uses on there.
Yeah, sure.
The knockback and deafen condition could definitely come into play in some niche RP scenarios as well. But I think where the real value comes in that is actually pretty solid is the up to 11. Yep. Being able to take all charisma checks to 11, that's... pretty solid.
And not just charisma checks, but any other check. So you do performance check.
Yeah.
Or anything like that. Because I'm thinking what else you would tie instruments to, but but at least performance.
But, I mean, just charisma checks in general, it's going to cover a lot of social interaction stuff on there, just in general. So, and getting a 10 base is... Or 11 base, I should say. Not 10. It's not reliable talent. That garbage.
We're turning up to 11.
11, yes. So getting that is actually pretty good, and it might actually, strangely enough, make the barbarian the face of the party if you don't have a bard, for example.
Yeah, or a sorcerer, or whatever else.
Potentially.
Yes. But it would create a lot of fun to have a barbarian rocking around. Yes.
Or you just go play into the intimidation kind of thing a little bit. So with that, we gave the roleplay a 3.5. Basically, just every ability is giving you something niche. So nothing crazy, but you are getting several abilities that could definitely be used in niche circumstances.
On to the combat side of things, where this does lean a little heavier into, obviously. I was just going to let that be subtle, and you had to just that's
how you do it.
Yep. This is a barbarian. We don't do subtlety here. What we're talking about.
That's right.
So once you get past the instrument proficiencies, obviously, you're leaning hard into your combat. And the biggest thing specifically on the combat that is going to be your solo shredding, because you're getting a stacking passive damage buff that adds on top of what your rage buff already is,
right.
And you're just going to keep smashing stuff. The important thing to really emphasize is it ends when you're not holding your weapon, or if you miss an attack, or if your rage ends. So it really, I'd say force isn't maybe the best word, but it strongly encourages you to reckless attack continuously, especially if you're fighting something that has a bigger, thicker armor, to make sure you're getting those hits in to maximize your damage output and keeping that damage. You think, it's only 1 damage or it's only 3 damage. Well, by the time that you get your proficiency bonus all the way up, you're looking at 10 and even 12 damage per weapon attack. Yeah. You swing it twice a turn.
You can keep the combo going.
I mean, but even if you can get it regularly up to like 5 or 6, you're swinging twice a turn. That's an extra 10 to 12 damage a turn.
That's a thing too that I would like to point out is if you decide to go 2-weapon fighter barbarian, you can do 3 attacks a turn because you use attack, extra attack, and then bonus action, offhand attack. You don't get to add your modifier to the hit,
but you get that extra flat damage.
Yeah.
So you can reckless whap whap whap.
Yes.
And you just get a bunch. You've become almost kind of like a monk in that sense. You're just hitting a bunch of times for like a lot of little damage because you're not having this big fat huge burst damage, but you're like, here's a D8 plus 5 plus 6 plus 3.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, where are all those extra numbers coming from?
And that's the thing too. If you can keep that combo up, you can start pumping.
You can start tack stacking up in a hurry. Of course, if you needed the whole Killer Vocals thing to be able to push something away from you, you do have that opportunity, especially if you're fighting something that has like a way to grapple you and pull you in, and you're trying to get away from that thing to get after something else because it's after your sorcerer wizard friend that doesn't like being anywhere close to anything.
Right.
They have social anxiety in combat specifically. Yeah. Also helpful. And then finally, of course, the smash hit thing. It's not a ton of damage, and it's only a once per short rest kind of thing, but being able just to choose when to trigger it, and there's no extra... limitations to it besides just, oh, I'm breaking this thing over his skull. Here, take extra 40-12.
It's a decent chunk of damage. I mean, you're averaging about 24 damage, give or take.
So it's not incredible, but it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. Right. So we gave it a 3.5 on combat as well. I said it does lean heavier into combat, but it does force you to either break your weapon for the big thing that you can't do all the time, and you've got to make sure you're hitting. So you're really encouraged to do the reckless attack. So you're leaving yourself open to take extra damage, even though you are a barbarian. You don't care as much as everybody else would. There's some limitations, but interesting at the very least what it offers for you in combat.
Yes. And then lastly, we have the overall class synergy. And of course, as a barbarian, the main things you're synergizing with is going to be your rage, reckless attack. I mean, danger sense can come into play occasionally, but pretty much your rage and reckless attack are the place to go.
Reckless attack.
There you go. And with that being said, there is good synergy with the rage and, of course, reckless attack as well, because it's going to encourage you, as Alex said, to reckless attack more often to try to fish to make sure you're keeping that combo going, which is definitely a very interesting mechanic to do, which is pretty unique, I would say.
And like I said, you bringing up the whole one-handed, dual-wielding barbarian, this would be, you wouldn't think about that normally, but with this specifically, it does create a unique opportunity to maybe build a different than traditional barbarian that way.
Right. For sure. And then you have the knockback, which is nice. It's basically, it would be more effective to basically do a pseudo disengage for allies, as one of the main issues with barbarians is getting into range of things. That tends to be a thing because they're strength based, so they really need to get into melee. But basically, the knockback it's nice, but it's nothing crazy. I mean, 5 feet, it's really just a disengage,
pretty much,
essentially. And then there is some internal synergy with the instrument efficiencies, with the abilities. I mean, you get your proficiencies with the instruments, you make instruments from your weapons, and then you get to smash said instrument weapons. So there's a nice little thing going on there, but you kind of have to keep it going in RP sense a little bit too, because if you're smashing weapons regularly, you're going to be having to remake them, and it takes 8 hours to do so. So you have to really plan accordingly to do so. All that being said, we just gave it a 3.5 as well in the synergy department. Some interesting stuff. But nothing crazy, I would say.
No.
It's just an interesting concept, I think, is the theme of this.
Which is kind of what our intentions were when we're going through this gargantuan list of subclasses and stuff in here, is we want to try to find the ones that felt the most unique of the bunch that we still found interesting mechanically to start with, and we'll probably eventually make our way through most of this book over the course of...
as many subclasses in this book as
like done. 6 years. But the other thing, I will emphasize one final thing, the ultimate niche, but would be the absolute funniest thing to happen, is if you look at the killer vocals thing, there is no save for it.
Right.
So in the off chance you actually could get something next to a cliff,
right, you just knock them off.
You could literally just knock them off, cliff kill them.
But to be fair, you could just shove them as well.
You could, but there's
chance.
There's a chance that fails. This does not,
right?
Because you're raw, just anger and power.
Power word.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
But yeah, guys, that's it. Short and sweet. 3.5s across the board, as you would say, perfectly balanced, as all things
should be.
But yeah, interesting subclass for sure. There's definitely some quirky, fun ones in this book for sure.
And they're
not all like that, but there are some like this as well that are a little bit more on the quirky side. But again, thank you to our sponsors, Hit Point Press and their Big Bads series magazine thing with all the cool monsters and stuff. Make sure you check them out. Check the Big Bads out. Lots of interesting stuff coming from Hit Point Press. Make sure you continue to check them out on a regular basis. That's all for today, guys. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications. You know when our new videos are coming out. And as always, thanks for watching.